Welcome to WooEnglish, where learning English comes alive with thrilling stories. Today's journey takes you to the heart of history as we unfold the emotional story of World War I, an unforgettable tale of courage, loss, and resilience. Our stories are told in clear, simple language, so you can improve your English as you listen. If you enjoy this story, hit like and leave a comment below. Your support helps us bring you more content you love. Remember, these stories are not only captivating, they're a fantastic way to grow your English skills. Enjoy. Chapter 1. A Bullet in Sarajevo. The morning sun spills over the city of Sarajevo, its warm light touching cobbled streets, crowded markets, and ancient walls. June 28, 1914, a date that feels like any other. But today, there's a strange tension in the air. People can feel it, whispering in corners, exchanging glances that speak of something more than excitement, something closer to fear. The Archduke of Austria-Hungary, Franz Ferdinand, is coming, in his fine open car, his beloved wife Sophie by his side. They're dressed in elegance, him in a grand uniform, her in a flowing gown, waving to the people. And the people wave back. But lurking within that crowd, there are men with different intentions, young men, faces tight with anger, hands clenched in determination. Among them stands Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist, his heart pounding. He waits, feeling the cold weight of a pistol in his pocket, hidden, yet so very close. The carriage turns the corner slow and open, passing rows of people cheering, and then it stops. A mistake, a hesitation. The driver takes the wrong turn. Franz Ferdinand calls out to him, "Stop!" But it's too late. There, in that split second, the young man steps forward, hand shaking yet steady, aiming with all his anger, his fear, his conviction. His finger pulls the trigger. Bang! One shot, and then another. The crowd gasps, horror flashing across their faces as they see the Archduke slump forward, his once confident face twisted in pain and disbelief. Sophie falls beside him, her dress stained red. The cheers turn to screams. People scatter, some frozen in shock, others running, pushing, a wave of panic swelling through the street. But the carriage remains still, rocking slightly as if the wheels themselves feel the weight of what just happened. Silence spreads, heavy and cold. No one dares breathe, no one dares speak. And in that silence, it begins to dawn on them. This was no accident. This was murder, an assassination. The guards seize the young man. He does not resist. His face is pale but calm, eyes fixed, almost as if he's looking beyond the city, beyond this moment, perhaps even beyond himself. They drag him away, while he mutters words about freedom, about justice. But there's no cheering for him, no applause, only faces twisted in shock, in horror. This is not the victory he dreamed of. And yet, the deed is done. Far away, in the grand halls of Vienna, news reaches the Emperor, Franz Joseph. A messenger rushes into the room, breathless, pale, the words tumbling out. "Your Imperial Majesty, the Archduke, he's dead." There's a pause, an eerie silence, as if the world itself is holding its breath. And then, anger fills the room, radiating from the emperor, from his advisors, from every loyal subject of Austria-Hungary. They demand justice. But behind the calls for revenge, there's a ripple of fear, a quiet dread that none of them dares to name. They don't speak it, but each of them knows this is the spark. The first flicker of something far larger, something they cannot control. They want justice, yes, but they want something more. They want power, control, a chance to show their strength. And so, they speak of revenge, not with caution, but with fire. A fire that threatens to consume everything it touches. As word of the assassination spreads, tension follows like a shadow, creeping through capitals and kingdoms across Europe. In Serbia, there are whispers of pride, of success, mixed with caution. They know what they've done, but they do not know what it will bring. Russia listens closely, watching Serbia, its small ally, wondering, how far should they go to protect it? In Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II is silent, but only for a moment. Then he makes his choice. His voice is strong, full of confidence as he speaks to Austria-Hungary. We will stand by you, no matter what. The blank check is given, a promise that will turn this spark into a blazing inferno. The streets of Europe buzz with gossip, with rumor. Merchants, students, soldiers, mothers, all of them feel the weight of it, this sudden tension. Something big is coming, something unstoppable. Alliances that were once whispers in royal courts are now chains, binding countries together, pulling them closer to war. But the people can only guess, only imagine. They know only that a great change is coming, that this single act has set something in motion, something they cannot control. Back in Sarajevo, the scene is quieter now. The streets are nearly empty, as if the city itself mourns. The bodies of Franz Ferdinand and Sophie have been taken away, leaving only a trail of blood and the echo of gunfire. Shops are shuttered, doors locked, and yet the silence remains. Only the faint sounds of soldiers' boots can be heard, a reminder of what's been lost and of what's to come. In Austria, the emperor sits, his heart heavy, his mind racing. He knows he must act. This is his chance to make history, to show the world his empire's might. But in the stillness of the night, when he is alone, doubt creeps in. The weight of his choices presses down on him, for he knows, somewhere deep inside, this is more than a single assassination. This is a path from which there may be no return. And so, as dawn approaches, as the world turns toward a new day, Europe stands on the brink. The air is thick with fear, with uncertainty, with the quiet dread that fills the hearts of men and women across the continent. They know not what the future holds, only that everything has changed. And so begins the journey, the path paved in secrecy, in fear, in ambition. For this bullet, fired on a warm June day in Sarajevo, has set in motion a fire that will consume nations, alter lives, and write a chapter in history that none will forget. The world holds its breath. Chapter 2. Whispers of Revenge. A chill sweeps through Vienna's imperial palace, reaching even the deepest, quietest rooms. News of the Archduke's assassination has traveled fast, echoing from one marble hall to the next, seeping into every heart. Advisors and ministers gather in tight clusters, faces pale, voices low. They speak of revenge, of retribution, of making Serbia pay. The rage is almost a living thing, hanging thick in the air, a storm waiting to break. In the center of it all stands the emperor himself, Franz Joseph, a man accustomed to loss. But this is different. He stares into the distance, his face unreadable, his hands clenched. His heart aches, not just for his nephew, his blood, but for his empire, for the insult he cannot ignore. A flicker of hesitation crosses his mind, but it is soon drowned out by the voices around him, voices full of fire and fury. "The time has come," one advisor says, his voice sharp and trembling. "This cannot go unanswered. They took our Archduke, our future." Heads nod, fists clench, and the whispers of revenge grow louder, swelling into an angry hum that fills the room. But behind those angry words lies something darker. A thirst, not just for justice, but for power, for control. They do not merely want Serbia to answer. They want to crush it, to show the world the strength of Austria-Hungary. Some try to urge caution, but their voices are drowned out. "What message would it send if we did nothing?" another argues. "Serbia must pay. The world must see our strength." And in that heated room, where each face is twisted with anger, doubt begins to vanish, replaced by a grim determination. They all know that one small step could tip them into chaos. But the desire to act, to respond with force, is stronger than their fears. In the shadowed corners of the palace, there are quieter voices, voices that ask, "What of Germany? Will they stand by us?" The question lingers, heavy, unanswered. For though Germany and Austria-Hungary are allies, this is something different. It is one thing to be allies in peace, but in war? A decision of this scale needs certainty. And so, a message is sent to Berlin, quick and urgent, seeking Germany's support. Meanwhile, in Berlin, another storm is brewing. Kaiser Wilhelm II, tall and proud, receives the message. He reads it once, then again, and a strange look crosses his face. He could pull Austria back. He could hold them from the brink. But instead, he pauses. The whispers around him echo in his mind. Austria-Hungary is their ally, their loyal partner. If they abandon them now, what does that say of German honor? And so, without hesitation, he offers them a promise. "Whatever you need, you will have," he says, his voice steady, his gaze unwavering. He calls it a blank check, a promise of full support no matter the cost. It is a momentous decision, a line crossed, a bond sealed. The Kaiser's heart races, his mind running with thoughts of power, of loyalty, of the glory that could await them both. But beneath that surface, there is a faint tremor of doubt. Is this the right path? Or is he leading his people to ruin? As the days pass, the whisper of revenge grows louder, like a low, steady drumbeat that fills every corner of Vienna. Men gather in shadowy rooms, debating plans, murmuring strategies, their eyes hard with ambition. The idea of war, once a distant nightmare, becomes something real, something they can almost touch. They talk of honor, of pride, of justice, but beneath those words lie ambitions hidden, unspoken. This is their chance to rise, to prove Austria-Hungary's might, to show the world that they are not to be crossed. In Serbia, too, the fear grows. The leaders know the danger, can feel it lurking just beyond their borders. They look to Russia, their powerful ally, hoping, praying for support. Will Russia come to our aid, they ask, voices filled with worry. But Russia is cautious. Tsar Nicholas II hesitates, torn between loyalty to Serbia and the fear of what this could mean for his empire. His advisors warn him, a single step into this conflict could draw all of Europe into war. But the ties of loyalty are strong, and though fear weighs heavily on him, he begins to prepare, quietly, for the worst. All across Europe, the tension spreads, like fire creeping through dry grass. The whispers of revenge are now more than words. They are decisions, plans, strategies. Leaders in France, in Britain, in Italy, they sense the change, feel the weight of what is coming. Alliances bind them, one to the other, in a fragile web of promises and pacts, a web that can't be undone. They do not want war, but they are bound by promises they cannot ignore. As Austria-Hungary prepares to strike, more soldiers are called to arms, the sounds of marching boots filling the city streets. The people watch, silent, faces tense, uncertain. Some cheer, but many watch with fear, with quiet dread. Mothers hold their children closer, wives look into their husbands' eyes, seeing the question neither dares to ask. For they all know, once these men march, there may be no return. In secret letters and hushed conversations, leaders across Europe make their plans, calculating their next moves like pieces on a grand, deadly chessboard. They are driven by fear, by pride, by the belief that if they hesitate, they will be left defenseless. The whispers of revenge have become a thunderous demand, a call for action that will not be silenced. And as July draws to a close, the final decisions are made. Austria-Hungary sends Serbia an ultimatum, a list of impossible demands. The world watches, breathless, waiting for Serbia's response. Leaders across Europe tense, hearts pounding as they await the reply. They know, if Serbia refuses, there will be no stopping the avalanche that follows. The letter arrives in Serbia. Leaders read it, faces pale, hands shaking. They know what this means. They know the cost. Their people, their country, everything they love. It hangs in the balance. But the demands are impossible. To accept would be to bow in humiliation. To refuse is to choose war. And so they answer, hoping for peace, preparing for the worst. As Vienna receives the reply, the palace is silent, tense. The message is clear, and in that moment, they all know. War is no longer a whisper, no longer a distant fear. It is here, real and unstoppable. A decision is made, the first step taken. The whispers of revenge have become a roar. Europe holds its breath, waiting. Chapter 3. Germany, An ally awaits. A letter arrives in Berlin. Its contents urgent, the words heavy with the weight of war. Austria-Hungary has finally decided they will not back down. They are ready to go to war with Serbia, ready to make them pay. But for that, they need support. They need Germany. The message is clear, a desperate plea wrapped in words of alliance, loyalty, and need. In his palace, Kaiser Wilhelm II sits, the letter in his hands, his face unreadable. He reads it again, slowly, each word sinking in, each sentence more certain than the last. This is it, the moment he has waited for, perhaps even hoped for. This is the chance for Germany to prove its power, its loyalty, its place in the world. And yet, a shadow of doubt flickers across his face. The Kaiser hesitates, feeling the weight of what he's about to do. The room is filled with his advisors, all watching him, their eyes eager, some even fearful. They know that with one word from him, a chain of events could begin. Events they may never be able to stop. One of his closest generals leans forward, his voice steady but urgent. Your Majesty, if we do not stand with Austria now, what will the world think of Germany? The Kaiser's eyes narrow. He knows the answer. If they abandon Austria-Hungary now, they will appear weak, unreliable, a country that does not honor its word. But if they go forward, if they step into this storm alongside Austria, they will be feared, respected, and that, he knows, is worth everything. Finally, he stands, his face set with determination. We will give them our support, he declares. His voice is firm, filled with certainty. We will stand by Austria-Hungary, whatever the cost. The words are spoken, the decision made, and the room fills with nods of approval, murmurs of pride. This is the blank check, a promise of unconditional support, a decision that binds Germany's fate to Austria's, and soon to the fate of Europe itself. The news spreads like wildfire through Berlin, filling the air with a mixture of pride and fear. Soldiers begin to gather, factories hum to life, preparing for a war that many can only imagine. In the streets, men talk of honor, of loyalty, of duty. Some are eager, faces alight with dreams of glory. But others are silent, their faces shadowed with dread, sensing the darkness that lies ahead. And yet, behind the grand speeches, the declarations of support, there is something else, a feeling of secrecy, of hesitation. For as Germany prepares to march forward with Austria, they know that their every move is being watched. Eyes across Europe are upon them, waiting, questioning. In Russia, in France, in Britain, leaders read the same news, their hearts pounding with a mixture of anger and fear. They know what this means, know that with Germany's support, Austria-Hungary has become a dangerous force, a force that could drag the entire continent into chaos. In Russia, Tsar Nicholas II receives word of Germany's pledge to Austria-Hungary. He stands in his grand palace, hands trembling as he reads, his face growing pale. This promise from Germany is more than words. It is a threat, a challenge. If Russia stands by and does nothing, they risk appearing weak. They risk losing everything. And so, reluctantly, he begins to make his own preparations, summoning his generals, readying his armies. The people of Russia whisper in fear, sensing that something terrible is about to unfold. In France, too, the reaction is swift. The leaders know that if Germany moves, they may be next. Memories of old conflicts rise, the image of a powerful Germany haunting them, filling them with a fierce need to defend, to prepare. They begin to strengthen their borders, rally their allies, and look toward Britain, hoping, praying for support. Britain watches, quiet and cautious. The leaders hesitate, not wanting to commit to war, hoping that somehow, some way, this storm will pass. But as they see the movements of Germany, the growing strength of Austria-Hungary, they begin to understand that staying out may no longer be an option. And as all of Europe watches, Germany prepares, each soldier, each citizen feeling the weight of the Kaiser's decision. Some believe in his vision of a powerful, unstoppable Germany, one that will lead Europe into a new era. Others worry that he is leading them to disaster, to a conflict that will destroy everything they have built. The air is thick with secrecy, with whispered conversations, with questions that none dare answer. The world is on edge, standing at the edge of a cliff. And Germany has just taken the first step forward. In Berlin's royal halls, there is a quiet moment, a brief pause in the whirlwind of preparations. Kaiser Wilhelm looks out over his city, his empire, his people. For a moment, his face softens, his eyes filled with something close to sorrow. He knows that this decision, this choice to support Austria-Hungary, is more than a political move. It is a choice that could mean life or death for millions. And yet, he cannot turn back. The promise has been made, and he will not break it. As night falls over Berlin, the city feels a strange calm, a silence before the storm. But in the quiet, there is an unspoken understanding, a knowledge that the path has been set. Germany is ready. The promises have been made, the alliances formed, and there is no going back. The people feel it, in their hearts, in their bones, a sense that everything they know, everything they love, is about to change. All across Europe, from the snowy streets of St. Petersburg to the bustling avenues of Paris, people feel the same tension, the same dread. They know that Germany's decision will not stand alone, that it will bring answers, responses, that each country will have to choose to fight, to flee, or to fall silent. And so, with Germany's promise to Austria-Hungary, the wheels of war begin to turn. The soldiers are ready, the leaders resolved, the alliances set. The world waits, holding its breath, knowing that the next steps, the next choices, could lead them all into a darkness deeper than they have ever known. For now, Berlin is quiet, the stars shining faintly over the silent city. But soon, very soon, the silence will be shattered. The whispers will turn to cries, and the world will tremble beneath the weight of Germany's decision. And as the Kaiser turns away from the window, he knows, in the deepest part of his soul, that the future has been sealed. The countdown to war has begun. Chapter 4. Web of Alliances. The heart of Europe, once beating in harmony, now races with tension, each pulse a warning of what's to come. Across borders and behind closed doors, Nations sit in silence, watching, waiting, each bound to another by ties, old promises, hidden fears, and alliances woven long ago. Austria-Hungary has moved, backed by Germany's promise, their blank check of support. But now, the consequences of those alliances, whispered in halls and inked on old paper, begin to unravel. The fragile peace that once held Europe together starts to crack, each country feeling the pull, the pressure of obligations they cannot ignore. In France, the news hits hard. A letter arrives, words marked by urgency, each line a reminder of the pact they made with Russia. If Russia marches to support Serbia, then France too must prepare, ready to face the giant to the east, Germany. French leaders gather, faces drawn, each of them realizing the price they may have to pay. For them, it is not just a choice of war or peace, it is a question of loyalty, of honor. And though fear tightens their throats, they know that the time for hesitation has passed. French soldiers are called to arms. The air is filled with the sounds of marching, of the clatter of equipment being readied, of young men saying quiet goodbyes. They do not know what lies ahead, only that they must follow orders, that they must be ready. In Paris, the city of light, the mood darkens. Whispers fill the streets, spreading from cafe to cafe. People glance at each other, questioning, wondering. Some are filled with pride, others with dread, but all feel the weight of what is coming. Meanwhile, in Russia, the decision is equally grim. Tsar Nicholas sits in his grand gilded palace, yet he feels the cold chill of uncertainty. Russia has long been allied with Serbia, bound by a shared history, by a sense of Slavic unity, by promises made under the weight of tradition. But if Russia moves, if he orders the mobilization, he knows it will draw Germany, then France, and perhaps even more. His advisors urge him to act, some with words of caution, others with the fire of loyalty. If we do nothing, Serbia will fall, they argue. And what will the world think of Russia? Nicholas closes his eyes for a moment, the weight of his empire pressing down on him, the people who look to him for protection, for strength. He knows that if he falters now, if he turns away, it will haunt him, haunt Russia forever. Finally, with a sigh that seems to echo through the silent palace, he nods. Russia will move. They will support Serbia, come what may. Across the Channel, in Britain, the leaders watch with wary eyes. Britain is bound by no clear alliance here, not yet, but the threat looms, just as heavy. They know that if Germany marches through Belgium, that small neutral country caught in the crossfire, then Britain will have to make a choice. They are bound by honor to protect Belgium's neutrality, an agreement signed years before. But now, that promise feels like a trap, one that could drag them into a war none of them want. In London, the discussions are tense, voices hushed, each man weighing the consequences, the risks. If we enter this war, there will be no going back, one warns. Another counters, but if we stay out, and Germany takes Belgium, what's to stop them from moving further? The debates continue, each argument sharper than the last, each voice tinged with a fear they try to hide. The British people watch and wait, hoping that their leaders will choose wisely, that somehow they will keep the peace. But peace is slipping further and further away. In Germany, the web of alliances is clearer but no less complex. They know that if Russia moves, then they too must act. Plans are drawn up, each detail accounted for, each step precise. The German military, strong and confident, prepares to march, to prove their might. Their leaders speak of a quick, decisive victory, a show of strength that will end the war before it truly begins. But even the most confident of them cannot shake the feeling that this war may not end as quickly, as cleanly as they hope. The alliances bind them all, invisible chains that pull them forward, one after another, like dominoes falling in a line. Austria-Hungary's move has triggered a reaction, a wave that now spreads through Europe, unstoppable, relentless. In each country, soldiers are called to arms, families say goodbye. Leaders prepare speeches to rally their people. And yet, beneath the surface, beneath the patriotic cries and brave words, lies a deep, unspoken fear. And in Belgium, that small, neutral nation, the people hear the rumors. They are caught, helpless, a pawn in a game played by giants. They have no power, no army to match the German force that may soon come crashing through their borders. Their leaders plead for peace, for protection, but they know deep down that their cries may go unanswered. Belgium holds its breath, praying that somehow, miraculously, they will be spared. In every corner of Europe, the mood is tense, the air thick with fear and suspicion. The alliances that were once promises of security, of unity, now feel like chains, dragging them all into a conflict they cannot avoid. The people feel it in the way soldiers march, in the way their leaders' voices shake, in the way friends and families say goodbye with tears they try to hide. And yet, no one can stop it. The countdown has begun, each hour bringing them closer, each decision pulling them deeper. The leaders, the soldiers, the citizens all know that the choice has been made, that the web of alliances so carefully woven has become a trap from which there is no escape. In the shadows of Vienna, Berlin, Paris, and London, whispers of doubt grow louder. Some still hope for peace, for a miracle that will end this madness before it begins. But hope, like a candle in a storm, flickers and fades. And as the clock ticks closer to midnight, the world stands on the edge, knowing that soon, very soon, the storm will break. The web of alliances meant to protect them all has done the opposite. It has bound them, one to the other, in a fate they cannot escape. The world waits. Chapter 5. A Standoff in St. Petersburg. The night is cold in St. Petersburg, the grand halls of the Winter Palace quiet, shrouded in shadows. But inside, tension hangs thick, pressing down on every room, every corridor. Tsar Nicholas II sits in his study, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly as he reads yet another letter, this one from Serbia. The message is clear. They need his help. If Russia does not act, Serbia will be crushed by Austria-Hungary, and with Germany's support, they stand no chance. Outside, the city rests under a thin layer of snow, but within these walls, there is no peace. Advisors, generals, ministers, all gather in the Tsar's chambers, their voices low, urgent, each one carrying the same plea. We must act, Your Majesty. We cannot abandon our allies. The Tsar nods, but his face is drawn, his eyes distant. He knows what they're asking, knows that if he moves, if he mobilizes the army, it will not be a simple gesture of support. It will be an invitation to war. Yet, how can he turn away? Serbia is Russia's ally, their Slavic brothers. To abandon them now would be an act of betrayal, one that would shame his empire. As Nicholas stares out the window, his mind races. The snow falls gently, silently, but his heart feels anything but calm. What if this war spreads, he mutters to himself, almost as if speaking to the cold night. He remembers the warning of his father, who told him once that alliances are like chains. If one breaks, the others follow. He never understood those words, until now. A cough breaks his thoughts, and he turns to see one of his oldest advisors, an older man with a face worn by years of service. Your Majesty, he says softly, if we do not act, if we let Austria march into Serbia unchecked, what will that say of Russia? How will our people, our allies, remember us? Nicholas closes his eyes. He knows the answer, of course, but knowing the answer and choosing to act on it are two very different things. His generals are already preparing, ready to mobilize the army at his command. They want to send a message, a warning to Austria and Germany. They want the world to see Russia's strength. And yet, a small voice inside him whispers of caution, of restraint. He thinks of his family, his wife, his children. They sleep peacefully, unaware of the weight he carries. If he chooses war, he knows that they too will pay the price. But if he hesitates, Russia's honor, her power, her place in the world could be lost forever. At last he rises, the decision heavy but clear. We will begin mobilization, he says, his voice steady, each word measured. A ripple of relief spreads through the room. The advisors nod, some with pride, others with grim satisfaction. This is the choice they wanted, the choice they urged him to make. But in the silence that follows, a new tension fills the air, a dread that none can deny. As the news spreads through St. Petersburg, a mixture of fear and excitement grips the city. Soldiers gather, their uniforms gleaming, their faces solemn. Mothers hug their sons, whispering blessings, some even trying to hold back tears. Fathers stand proud, yet inside, their hearts break. They all know this mobilization is not just a message, it is a step toward war, a war that may reach far beyond Serbia, beyond Austria, beyond Russia. In a small house at the edge of the city, a young soldier named Ivan sits with his family. His mother holds his hand tightly, her eyes filled with worry. Promise me, Ivan. Promise me you'll come back. Her voice breaks, and Ivan looks down, his own face shadowed with fear. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know if he can keep that promise. Instead, he simply nods, hoping that somehow it will be enough. All over Russia, the scene is the same. Families torn between pride and fear, soldiers ready to serve, yet unsure of what lies ahead. The people look to the Tsar, trusting him to lead them, to make the right choice. But they cannot see the doubt that lingers in his eyes, the weight that pulls at his heart. Meanwhile, across the border, Germany watches with narrowed eyes. News of Russia's mobilization reaches Berlin, and the leaders there are furious, alarmed. For them, this move is not just a show of loyalty to Serbia. It is a direct threat, a challenge they cannot ignore. Kaiser Wilhelm, upon hearing the news, paces back and forth, his face dark with anger. "What is Nicholas thinking?" he shouts, his voice echoing through the grand halls of his palace. "Does he not realize what this means? If he moves, we must respond." His advisors nod in agreement, each of them aware that this standoff cannot last. The wheels of war have begun to turn, and now they are caught in the same chain, the same web of alliances that binds them all. In Germany's bustling cities, the reaction is swift. Soldiers are called to prepare, supplies gathered, letters sent to families, to loved ones, warning them of what may come. The air is thick with tension, each person aware that this could be the beginning of something unstoppable, something that may change Europe forever. As night falls over St. Petersburg, Tsar Nicholas sits alone once more, staring at a single candle flickering in the darkness. He knows that his choice, his decision to mobilize, has set events into motion that cannot be reversed. He hopes that his move will be enough to frighten Austria to keep Germany at bay. But deep down, he knows that hope is a fragile thing, and the world around him is on the edge of a storm. The Winter Palace is silent, the city outside hushed, as if holding its breath. But Nicholas knows that silence won't last. Soon, very soon, the sounds of war will fill the air, not just here, but across Europe. And as he blows out the candle, leaving himself in darkness, he realizes there is no turning back. The standoff has begun. Chapter 6. The Ultimatum. The air in Vienna is thick with tension. Soldiers march through the streets, people whisper nervously, and in grand offices, diplomats sit over documents, their faces hard, their eyes cold. Austria-Hungary has had enough of waiting, enough of talk. The decision has been made. Serbia will be brought to heel. There will be no more chances, no more warnings. In the dimly lit room of an embassy, an ultimatum is drafted. Each word is chosen with care, each demand crafted to push, to provoke, to make refusal the only possible response. The message is not merely a list of requirements, it is a test of loyalty, a test of power. Austria-Hungary wants Serbia to feel the weight of its wrath, to submit completely or to face the consequences. The diplomats gather, reading the ultimatum with grim satisfaction. "This," one of them murmurs, "is what they deserve. This is how we show our strength." They know that the demands are nearly impossible, that Serbia could never agree without sacrificing its pride, its sovereignty. But that, of course, is the plan. They want a reason to strike. They want Serbia to say no. At last, the ultimatum is complete. It is sent swiftly, a letter heavy with the weight of war, a letter that will determine the fate of nations. In Belgrade, Serbia's leaders receive the ultimatum with horror, their faces pale as they read. The demands are shocking, harsh, designed to humiliate. Austria-Hungary wants access to Serbian courts, Serbian police, even Serbia's military. They want Serbia to open its doors, its secrets, to become little more than a puppet. The leaders exchange looks, each one feeling the same fear, the same anger. "What choice do we have?" one of them asks, his voice trembling. "If we agree, we lose everything. If we refuse—" His voice trails off, the unspoken answer hanging heavy in the air. "If they refuse, there will be war." The Prime Minister stands, his face lined with exhaustion, his eyes blazing. "We cannot agree," he says firmly. "Our people would never forgive us. We would never forgive ourselves." But even as he speaks, his heart pounds with fear, a fear he cannot show. He knows what refusal will mean, knows that they are walking into a trap. But Serbia's pride, its sovereignty, is worth more than submission, more than peace bought at such a cost. As the news spreads, the people of Serbia brace themselves. Soldiers prepare, families hold each other close, and prayers are whispered in homes, in churches, on quiet streets. They know that Austria-Hungary's anger will fall upon them like a storm, but they also know that they cannot surrender, cannot let fear dictate their fate. Pride, defiance, desperation, they feel it all, each emotion cutting deeper than the last. The response is sent back to Vienna. It is cautious, filled with careful words, concessions that they hope will satisfy Austria-Hungary without breaking Serbia's spirit. But even as the letter is sealed, they know it will not be enough. They know that Austria-Hungary did not want peace, only an excuse. In Vienna, the response arrives. It is read aloud, line by line, the diplomats' faces hardening with each word. Serbia has given in on some points, yes, but they have refused others. The most humiliating, the ones that would have stripped them bare. Austria-Hungary's leaders exchange nods, and a cold smile spreads across one diplomat's face. "This is it," he says softly. "This is our reason. This is our answer." Across Europe, the tension builds. The news of the ultimatum and Serbia's response reaches Russia, Germany, France, Britain. Each country braces itself, watching, waiting, feeling the dark shadow of war loom ever closer. The alliances tighten, like knots being pulled with every new twist, every new demand. In St. Petersburg, Tsar Nicholas II reads the ultimatum and Serbia's reply, his face filled with dread. He knows what this means. He knows that Austria-Hungary's next move will be to declare war, and if they do, Russia must respond. He summons his advisors, his generals, each one ready to do whatever it takes to protect Serbia, to defend Russia's honor. But as they prepare, a heavy silence fills the room, the weight of decisions that can never be undone. In Berlin, Kaiser Wilhelm is told of Serbia's response. He feels a strange mixture of satisfaction and fear. Satisfaction, for he has prepared for this, has promised Austria-Hungary his support. But fear, because he knows that this will be no small fight. This will be a conflict that could shake the world, could destroy everything they have built. But the path is set, and the wheels of war turn faster. And in Paris, in London, leaders gather in shadowed rooms, their voices low, their faces grim. They know that if Russia moves, if Germany follows, they too will be drawn in. Britain watches especially carefully, for they have pledged to protect the neutrality of Belgium, a small country caught in the middle of this growing storm. If Germany marches through Belgium to reach France, Britain will have no choice but to act. The world holds its breath. In Belgrade, the people brace themselves watching the horizon, listening for any sign of what's to come. Soldiers stand guard, families wait in silence, the city alive with tension. The ultimatum was a warning, a threat, but they have made their choice. They will not surrender. They will not bow. And in Vienna, the decision is made. Austria-Hungary will declare war on Serbia, a declaration that will echo across the continent, pulling each country closer, each leader forced to decide, to stand back, or to stand by their allies. The ultimatum has done its work. It was never about peace, never about negotiation. It was a challenge, a demand that could only end one way. And as the sun rises over Europe, the final preparations are made. Soldiers march, ships ready, supplies gathered. In every country, people feel it, a sense that the world they knew is slipping away, that something terrible, unstoppable, is on the horizon. The declaration of war arrives in Belgrade, a message of doom sealed in a single envelope. The leaders read it in silence, their faces set, their hearts heavy. They have known all along that this was coming, yet seeing the words in black and white makes it real. Serbia is at war. Austria-Hungary has made its move, and now the entire world stands on the brink. And so the countdown ends. The whispers of war become a roar, a cry that will spread across continents, across oceans, drawing each country, each soldier, each family into the heart of a storm they cannot escape. The ultimatum has done its work, and now the war begins. Chapter 7. Countdown begins. The declaration has been made. Austria-Hungary is at war with Serbia. The words travel like wildfire across Europe, sparking fear, outrage, and a sense of inevitability. In every capital, the news brings a ripple of reaction, a rising tension that grips each leader, each soldier, each family. The countdown to a larger war has begun. In Vienna, the mood is fierce, triumphant. The people cheer in the streets, waving flags, shouting slogans of pride and power. But behind the cheers, there is a tremor of fear, a shadow of doubt. The leaders know they are no longer in control. With each passing hour, the possibility of a larger conflict grows, and they wonder, how far will this go? In St. Petersburg, Tsar Nicholas II receives the news. The message sits heavy in his hands, each word a blow to his hopes for peace. He looks around at his advisers, at his generals, each one waiting, watching, holding their breath. Russia has promised to protect Serbia. But the Tsar knows the cost of that promise. If he moves now, if he sends his soldiers to the borders, it will not be a small conflict. It will be a war a war unlike any they have known. His advisers urge him on. "We must mobilize, Your Majesty. We cannot abandon our allies." The Tsar nods slowly, reluctantly, his mind torn. He sees the faces of his people in his mind, their hopes, their lives, and he knows. This choice could tear his country apart. But he cannot turn away from Serbia, from his duty, from his pride. Finally, he makes the choice. "We will mobilize," he says softly, his voice carrying the weight of his decision. The countdown to war moves faster. As the order spreads, the people of Russia feel the shock. Soldiers begin to gather, supplies are loaded, and young men say goodbye to their families, their voices choked with fear and pride. Across the vast stretches of Russia, the news spreads, each town, each village feeling the tension, the dread. Mothers weep, wives hold their husbands, and children look on, eyes wide with confusion, with fear. They know only that something dark is coming, something that will change their lives forever. In Berlin, Kaiser Wilhelm receives word of Russia's mobilization. His face hardens, his fists clenched, his mind racing. This is a threat he cannot ignore. If Russia mobilizes, then Germany must respond. The alliances, the promises, the plans, they all demand action. And in that moment, Wilhelm knows that he must make a choice that will pull Germany and perhaps all of Europe into war. He gathers his advisors, his generals, men who have prepared for this moment, who have spent years building Germany's strength, waiting for a chance to prove it. They nod, their faces grim, determined, ready to follow his orders, whatever they may be. The Kaiser stands tall, his voice steady as he speaks. "We will mobilize. We cannot stand by while Russia threatens our ally, and us." The decision is made. The German army is called to arms, and across the country, the people begin to prepare. In towns and cities, in factories and farms, the reality of war settles over them like a dark cloud. Some cheer, some pray, others weep, and all know that the world they knew is slipping away. The tension spreads further still. In Paris, leaders receive the news of Germany's mobilization, and they feel the same fear, the same pressure. France has pledged to support Russia, to stand against Germany. They know that if they hesitate, if they delay, Germany's power will only grow. They must act. They must prepare. And so, in Paris, the order is given. France will mobilize. Soldiers gather, families say goodbye, and the streets fill with the sounds of marching boots, of whispers, of quiet goodbyes. The people of France know what is coming. They remember the last war with Germany, the loss, the pain, and they know that this time it may be even worse. But still, they stand firm, their pride, their courage holding them steady. For this is their country, their home, and they will fight to protect it. Across the Channel, in Britain, the leaders watch with growing dread. They have not yet joined the conflict, but they know they are bound by a promise to protect Belgium. If Germany marches through Belgium to reach France, Britain will have no choice. The decision haunts them, each leader feeling the weight of what is at stake. Britain has not known war on this scale for years, and the thought of joining fills them with a quiet, heavy fear. But they know that if they do not act, if they let Germany march through Belgium, then everything they have built, everything they stand for, may be lost. And so, they wait, holding their breath, knowing that soon, very soon, they will have to make their choice. The days pass, each one bringing Europe closer to the edge, each decision tightening the web of alliances, the bonds of promises made long ago. And as the sun sets each night, families across the continent hold each other close, wondering, fearing, hoping. They know that their world is changing, that something terrible is coming, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. In Serbia, the people brace themselves, knowing that Austria-Hungary's armies are on the move, knowing that their small country will be the first battleground. Soldiers stand guard, their faces set, their hearts heavy with pride, with fear. They know the odds are against them, but they stand ready to defend their home, their families, their freedom. And so, as the final hours tick away, the nations of Europe stand poised, each one bound by promises, by pride, by fear. The leaders, the soldiers, the people, all know that the countdown has reached its end. The choice is no longer theirs. The alliances have bound them together, and now the war is inevitable. The final preparations are made. Soldiers march, families say goodbye, the quiet peace of Europe replaced by the heavy drum of war. And as the first shots are fired, as the armies move forward, as the world plunges into darkness, one truth becomes clear. The countdown is over. The war has begun. Chapter 8. The Guns of August. The first light of August dawns over Europe, but it is not a peaceful morning. The air is tense, charged, like a storm about to break. Soldiers gather in lines, uniforms pressed, weapons in hand. The ground trembles under the weight of marching boots, the rumble of trains carrying men, supplies, artillery, all the makings of war. Mothers, wives, children, faces lined with worry, watch as their loved ones depart, knowing they may never see them again. In Germany, the air is filled with patriotic cries. Men wave goodbye to their families, each step bringing them closer to the front. They are told it will be a swift victory, over by Christmas, perhaps even sooner. There is excitement in their eyes, a glint of pride, of courage. Yet, for some, there is a hint of fear. They have heard stories of war, of battles from long ago, and a small voice within whispers that this war might be different. As Germany moves westward, their path leads them straight through Belgium, a small, neutral country caught between giants. German troops march forward, confident, unstoppable, until they meet the unexpected. Belgium resists. Against all odds, the people of Belgium stand firm, defiant, refusing to surrender their homes, their cities, their country. In the small town of Liège, Belgian soldiers dig in, faces set with determination, hands trembling as they grip their rifles. The sounds of gunfire fill the air, echoing through the streets, mixing with shouts, cries, the chaos of battle. And suddenly, the reality of war is no longer a distant idea. It is here, real, bloody. terrifying. The world watches, stunned. News of Belgium's resistance spreads quickly, reaching Paris, London, St. Petersburg. The people are inspired by Belgium's courage, but they are also afraid. If Germany will attack a neutral country so fiercely, what else are they willing to do? In London, the leaders gather, the tension almost unbearable. Britain had hoped to stay out of the conflict, to remain a spectator, but they cannot ignore the invasion of Belgium. They are bound by a promise to protect its neutrality. The choice is clear, yet it is still a difficult one. At last, Britain declares war on Germany. The decision reverberates through the city, through the entire country. The people gather in the streets, a mix of cheers and silence, faces etched with pride and fear. They know what this means, know that Britain is now committed, that there is no turning back. Young men line up outside recruitment offices, eager to do their duty, to protect their homeland. The excitement is contagious. Even boys too young to serve try to join, hoping to be a part of something larger, something grand. But beneath the excitement, the gravity of the moment presses down on them all. They are about to step into a darkness they cannot yet comprehend. Meanwhile, in Paris, the mood is somber, tense. France has mobilized its armies, calling every able man to the front. The people of Paris bid farewell to their sons, their husbands, knowing that this war will be fought on their soil, in their villages, in their fields. The city, usually filled with laughter, with music, now echoes with silence, with whispered prayers, with quiet tears. They know what is at stake, and they know the cost will be great. On the Eastern Front, Russia, too, prepares for battle. The Tsar's soldiers march, their faces grim, their hearts heavy. They know the terrain, the brutal winters, the vast expanses. But they also know that Germany is a powerful foe, and that this war will be a test like none before. The Russian people pray for victory, but the dread lingers, a shadow that even the strongest cannot shake. As the days of August pass, the war spreads, like fire through dry grass, unstoppable, consuming all in its path. The sounds of guns, of explosions, fill the air, shattering the quiet of villages, forests, and fields. Europe is now engulfed in a storm of violence, each country bound by alliances, by promises, by pride. The soldiers on the front lines experience horrors they never imagined. The trenches, deep and dark, become their homes. They eat, sleep, fight, and die there. The smell of earth, of sweat, of blood fills the air, a constant reminder of where they are, of what they face. Days blend into nights, nights into days. Each hour a fight for survival, a test of endurance. In letters home, soldiers try to hide the horror, to comfort their families, to assure them that they are well, that the war will end soon. They write of camaraderie, of bravery, of small victories. But beneath the words, a different story emerges. They are afraid, exhausted, changed. They have seen things that will haunt them forever, things they cannot put into words. And as the weeks turn into months, the reality of the war becomes clear. This will not be a quick conflict. It will not end by Christmas. The battles grow fiercer. the losses mount, and the nations of Europe begin to understand the full scope of what they have unleashed. In every home, every village, the effects of the war are felt. Families wait for letters, dreading the day when the postman brings a different kind of message. The one that begins with, "We regret to inform you." The war touches everyone in ways they could not have foreseen. The pride, the excitement that filled the early days of August fades, replaced by sorrow, by a quiet, growing despair. Yet the soldiers march on, the leaders push forward, and the guns of August thunder on, drowning out hopes of peace, of mercy. The war machine is unstoppable, its gears grinding forward, fueled by ambition, by duty, by a fierce determination that will not allow retreat. As August draws to a close, Europe is changed. The countryside is scarred by battle. Towns are turned to rubble, and families are torn apart. The guns of August have set a course, a path that leads only to more bloodshed, more pain, more loss. And in the hearts of those who remain, a single question echoes: how much more must we endure? How long will this nightmare last? But there is no answer, only the relentless roar of battle, the smoke that fills the sky, the silence of those who are gone. The guns of August fade into September, but the war rages on. Chapter 9. Belgium, Brave and Besieged. In early August, the quiet fields and villages of Belgium awaken to the thunder of marching boots, the rumble of artillery, and the sight of German soldiers advancing through their homeland. Belgium, a small and neutral nation, stands in the way of Germany's path to France. And though they know their army is no match for the German force, the Belgians will not surrender without a fight. In the town of Liège, Belgian soldiers prepare to defend their homes. The fortresses around the city are strong, thick with iron and stone, built to protect against any enemy that dares to invade. Inside these fortresses, men wait, their faces filled with grim determination. They know the odds, they know their numbers are few, but they also know what they're fighting for. Each man stands ready, his heart pounding, his rifle at his side, determined to defend his country, his family, his home. The first German artillery shells explode over Liège, shaking the ground, filling the air with smoke and debris. The noise is deafening, the shock waves rippling through the streets, breaking windows, shattering walls. But the Belgian soldiers hold their ground, returning fire, their hearts racing, hands shaking. They know this is only the beginning. For days, the battle rages, German forces surrounding the fortresses, determined to break through. But Liège will not fall easily. Each day brings new attacks, new waves of soldiers, each one more relentless than the last. Yet the Belgians, outnumbered and outgunned, refuse to yield. Inside the forts, in the trenches, the men endure, barely sleeping, barely eating, every sense sharpened by the constant threat of death. Outside the city, civilians listen to the distant roar of battle, fear and pride mixing in their hearts. They know their soldiers are fighting, holding back the invaders, and they cling to the hope that somehow they will hold. Families huddle together, praying for the safety of their sons, their fathers, their brothers, and for their beloved Belgium. But Germany will not be stopped. They bring out their heaviest weapons, enormous cannons capable of breaking through even the strongest fortresses. Big Bertha, they call them, monstrous guns that fire shells so large they shatter the earth itself. The Belgians watch in horror as the cannons roar, as their mighty forts crumble under the relentless assault. Each explosion shakes their courage, but they refuse to abandon their posts, refuse to surrender. The streets of Liège become a war zone, rubble scattered, buildings destroyed. Yet still, the Belgians fight. Ordinary people join the soldiers, fighting in any way they can, using whatever they have. Young and old, they resist, knowing they cannot defeat the German army, but determined to slow them down, to give France and Britain time to prepare. Messages of Belgium's bravery spread quickly across Europe, reaching the ears of leaders, of citizens, of soldiers. In Paris, in London, people are moved by the stories of courage, of resistance, of a small country standing up to a giant. The people of France and Britain feel a surge of pride, of loyalty to their ally. If Belgium can stand, so can we, they whisper, drawing strength from the courage of a nation under siege. But as the days pass, as the German army presses forward, the Belgian soldiers grow weary. Exhausted, hungry, injured, they continue to fight, clinging to every inch of their homeland. And though they know that victory is impossible, they refuse to give in. Their resistance slows the German advance, forcing them to divert troops, to spend precious time and resources. Belgium, small and brave, is holding the line. In the capital city of Brussels, people listen to the news with heavy hearts. They know the Germans are advancing, that the soldiers of Liège cannot hold out forever. Families wait in silence, children clinging to their mothers, each day bringing news of more battles, more losses. And yet, there is a sense of pride, a fierce, unbreakable loyalty to their country, their flag. They will not bow, not willingly, not without a fight. Finally, after days of brutal combat, the German forces break through. Liège falls, its fortresses reduced to rubble, its soldiers wounded, captured, or worse. The German army continues its march through Belgium, leaving destruction in its wake. Villages burn, families flee, the sound of gunfire echoing through the countryside. But the spirit of Belgium remains unbroken. The stories of Liège's bravery, of the soldiers who fought until the end, inspire a fierce pride in every Belgian heart. And though the German army moves forward, though they claim victory over the forts, they cannot claim victory over the spirit of the people. As the German soldiers push toward France, they leave behind a country scarred, wounded, yet defiant. Belgium's sacrifice is not forgotten. Across Europe, leaders, soldiers, citizens honor the courage of this small nation. They know that Belgium has bought them time, that the resistance in Liège has slowed the German advance, that Belgium's bravery has given them a fighting chance. In London, in Paris, people rally around the stories of Belgium's heroism. Soldiers enlist, inspired by the tales of defiance, of loyalty, of courage. The leaders of Europe know that Belgium's stand has changed the course of the war, that their sacrifice has shifted the tides. Belgium, though small, has proven that courage cannot be measured by numbers, that even the smallest country can stand tall in the face of an enemy. And as the German army moves onward, the people of Belgium rebuild, their hearts filled with a fierce, unbreakable pride. They may be occupied, their towns and cities may be scarred, but their spirit remains free. They have fought with everything they had, given all that they could. And though the guns may have silenced their forts, they will never silence the courage that lives on in the hearts of every Belgian. Belgium, brave and besieged, has shown the world the true meaning of resilience. Chapter 10. The Last Letter Home. The trenches stretch endlessly across the fields of Europe, cold, dark, and filled with men who barely recognize themselves anymore. For days, weeks, even months, they have endured the mud, the rats, the constant rumble of artillery overhead. The once clean uniforms are now stained and tattered, the fresh faces now lined with grime and exhaustion. And as night falls, a hush settles over the men, broken only by the soft scratching of pens on paper. Letters. The last connection to home. In one small corner of the trench, a young soldier named Thomas pulls out a wrinkled piece of paper, a stub of a pencil clutched in his fingers. His hands shake slightly as he writes, his mind reaching back to a place far from this muddy battlefield, a place of warmth, of safety, of love. He begins his letter, slowly, carefully, each word feeling like a whisper from another life. "Dear Mother," he writes, pausing to imagine her face, her smile, the way she'd fuss over him if she saw him now. He swallows, holding back the ache in his chest, the longing to be back in that warm kitchen, to hear her laugh, to smell the fresh bread she'd bake on Sunday mornings. He tells her he's safe, that everything is fine, though he knows those words are only half true. But what can he say? That he spends each day in fear? That he's seen things he can't forget? As he writes, another soldier leans close, trying to read by the dim light of a flickering match. This one, Jack, is writing to his sweetheart. "My dearest Anna," he begins, his hand steady but his heart racing. He tells her he misses her, that he counts the days until he can see her again. He doesn't mention the horrors he's seen, the friends he's lost. No, he keeps those thoughts hidden, locked away, choosing instead to fill the letter with memories, with promises of the future, a future he can only hope he'll live to see. All around them, men write their letters, each one a lifeline to a world that feels farther away with every passing day. Some write with laughter, telling tales of bravery, of small victories, hoping to lift the spirits of those waiting for them. Others write with honesty, admitting their fears, their struggles, hoping for a word of comfort, a reminder that someone, somewhere, still cares. Thomas pauses, his pencil hovering over the page, his mind caught between truth and hope. He wants to tell his mother everything, the fear, the cold, the nightmares that keep him awake. But he knows it would break her heart. And so, he writes the words she wants to hear, words that will bring her peace, even if they cannot bring him the same. Across the trench, another soldier, only 19, stares at his letter, unfinished, unsure of what to say. This is his first battle, his first taste of war, and already he feels the weight of it pressing down on him. He writes to his father, a man who had once told him that war was honorable, that serving his country was a duty. But now, he wonders, is this honor? Is this duty? Or is it simply survival? As the night deepens, the sounds of battle fade, replaced by the soft murmurs of men sharing memories, jokes, dreams of home. The letters are their escape, their chance to be more than soldiers, more than just faces in a muddy trench. Through these letters, they are sons, brothers, husbands. They are human. But each man knows deep down that this letter could be his last. They see it in each other's eyes, in the way they hesitate before sealing the envelope, in the way they hold the letters close for just a moment longer, as if by doing so, they can somehow keep part of themselves safe. In the quiet, a figure approaches, collecting the letters, each one carefully folded, each one filled with words that carry the weight of hope, of fear, of love. Thomas hands over his letter, watching as it disappears into the satchel, as if part of him is being carried away. He closes his eyes, imagining his mother's face as she reads it, the comfort it will bring her, even if it cannot erase her worry. The soldier collecting the letters moves on, disappearing into the darkness, carrying with him the hearts of hundreds of men. They know these letters may never reach home, that the journey is long, dangerous, but they hold on to the hope that somehow, some way, their words will make it. The next morning dawns, cold and gray. The men wake, stretch, prepare for another day of fighting, of survival. They have no choice but to continue, to face whatever comes, to stand beside each other in the face of fear. And as they march forward, as the sounds of gunfire fill the air once more, they carry with them the memory of those letters, the knowledge that somewhere, someone is waiting for them. Someone believes in them. For the soldiers, the letters are more than words on paper. They are promises. Promises to return, promises to survive, promises of a life beyond the trenches. And though many will fall, though many will never see those promises fulfilled, they hold them close, each word a light in the darkness. As they march, as they fight, as they endure the endless days of war, they carry those letters in their hearts, letters filled with love, with hope, with everything they cannot say out loud. And in those quiet moments, in the stillness between battles, they find strength in those words, strength to continue, strength to believe that one day they will return home. But for now, all they can do is fight, survive, and hold on to those letters, those last precious words from a world they may never see again. Chapter 11. Blood and Mud. The trenches stretch out like scars across the earth, dark, wet, endless. The air is thick with the smell of mud, sweat, and something darker, the unmistakable stench of war. The men crouch low, shoulders hunched, eyes wide with exhaustion and fear. For months they have lived in these ditches, carving out a life in the shadows of death. And now, it seems, this muddy wasteland is all they know. As dawn breaks, a faint light spills over the battlefield, casting long shadows across the trenches. Men stir, pulling themselves up from the cold ground, wrapping their thin jackets tighter against the biting chill. The silence is eerie, heavy, as if even the world itself holds its breath, waiting. But each man knows it will not last. A whistle sounds, sharp, piercing, and suddenly they are up, climbing the ladders, pushing themselves over the edge and into the open. The ground is wet, slick, sucking at their boots with every step. They push forward, hearts pounding, rifles gripped tightly in hands that tremble despite their resolve. This is the charge, the moment they have dreaded and prepared for, the test of their courage, their endurance. Gunfire erupts, filling the air with a deafening roar, bullets tearing through the fog. Men fall, one after another, their bodies hitting the ground with a sickening finality. And yet, the others keep moving, driven by duty, by fear, by something they can barely understand. They run through the mud, through the blood, through the cries of their fallen friends, each step feeling like an eternity. For hours, the battle rages on, a deadly game of inches. Each side gains a little ground, then loses it, the lines shifting back and forth as if mocking their efforts. The ground is soaked, not only with rain, but with the lives of those who fought here. Men who came with dreams of glory, of honor. Now lost in the endless cycle of advance and retreat. In a brief lull, the men collapse back into the trenches, breathing heavily, hands shaking. The mud clings to them, coats them, as if marking them, binding them to this place. They barely recognize each other anymore, faces hidden beneath layers of dirt and grime, eyes hollow, haunted. They are young, yet they feel so old, as if the weight of the world presses down on their shoulders, a burden they cannot escape. One soldier, barely more than a boy, stares at his hands, stained with mud and blood. He remembers his mother, his father, the quiet life he left behind. He remembers the promises he made to return, to survive. But now, here in the depths of the trench, those promises feel like empty words, lost in the noise of battle, swallowed by the mud beneath his feet. In the stillness, another soldier begins to hum, a soft, broken tune that drifts through the air, a reminder of home, of better days. Others join in, their voices weak, wavering, yet somehow steady. It is a song of longing, of hope, a fragile thread that ties them together, even here, in this place of despair. For a moment, they are not soldiers, not men at war, but simply human. But the moment fades, as all moments here do, replaced by the rumble of distant artillery, the sounds of boots, of orders shouted in the cold morning air. They know what is coming. They know they will have to go over the top again, to face the same horrors, the same risks, to fight for a few yards of earth that seem to matter more than their lives. They brace themselves, each man feeling the weight of what lies ahead. Fear gnaws at their hearts, a silent scream that echoes in their minds, but they swallow it down, push it aside, because here there is no room for fear, only survival. The whistles sound again, and they climb, bodies moving on instinct, on training. They run, heads low, eyes sharp, moving as fast as the mud will allow, dodging, diving, praying for some kind of mercy. Explosions fill the air. The ground shakes, and the rain begins to fall, as if the sky itself weeps for them. Hours blur into days, days into nights. The mud becomes their world, their only constant. It clings to them, covering their uniforms, their hands, their faces, sinking into their very souls. It is everywhere, in their food, their water, even their dreams. It is a living thing, swallowing them, trapping them, pulling them deeper into the nightmare. In the darkness of the trenches, they huddle together, sharing stories, memories, pieces of themselves that they cling to like lifelines. They speak of loved ones, of places far from here, of a time when their biggest worries were so small. Some write letters, their words shaky but full of longing, hoping their families will feel their love, their pain, their need to be remembered. But they know, even as they write, that some letters may never be sent, that some stories will never be finished. Here, in the mud and blood, the line between life and death is thin, and each man knows that he may not see another dawn. As another battle begins, they stand side by side, brothers in arms, bound by the fear, the courage, the madness of war. They do not know what tomorrow holds. They do not know if they will survive, but they march forward, step by step, refusing to give up, refusing to let the mud swallow them whole. The ground trembles, the skies darken, and the war rages on. And as they press on, through the mud, through the blood, through the endless, brutal struggle, they know that they are changed. This place, this war, has marked them, left scars that will never heal. And though they dream of home, of peace, of a life beyond the trenches, they know that some part of them will remain here, in this place of blood and mud, forever. Chapter 12. A World Changed Forever. The guns fall silent. The endless roar of artillery, the deafening blasts, the cries of men, all of it fades into a quiet so profound it feels like a dream. Across Europe, from the muddy trenches of France to the shattered towns of Belgium, soldiers lower their weapons, their hands trembling, their hearts heavy. The war is over. The armistice has been signed. But as the quiet settles over the battlefields, a new feeling emerges, one of loss, of sorrow, of an emptiness that nothing can fill. In the trenches, men look around, their faces hollow, their eyes distant. They are survivors, yet they feel like ghosts. For years they have fought, endured, survived the impossible. And now, as peace finally comes, they wonder what will become of them, what kind of world they are returning to, if it can ever be the same. The uniforms hang loosely on their bodies, clothes once worn with pride now marked with grime, with the scars of battles that have stolen so much from them. They look at each other, brothers in arms, yet strangers in their own skins, each man carrying the weight of memories too dark to speak aloud. Back home, bells ring out, cheers echo in the streets, flags wave proudly in the breeze. People celebrate, relieved that their sons, their husbands, their fathers will finally return. But as the soldiers arrive, weary, broken, changed, they realize that the men who left are not the same as those who have returned. The streets are filled with laughter, but the men walk in silence, their eyes seeing a world that no one else can understand. They look around, feeling as if they are strangers in a land they once knew, a land that feels untouched, unmarked by the horrors they have seen. Families gather, embracing their loved ones, wiping away tears, murmuring words of joy, of love. But in each reunion, there is a quiet pause, a recognition of the distance that war has placed between them. Mothers hug sons who are no longer boys. Wives kiss husbands whose hearts have been hardened by survival. Children cling to fathers they barely recognize, feeling the weight of a grief they cannot name. The world has changed, and so have they. Across Europe, cities lie in ruins, towns reduced to rubble. Fields that once bore crops now bear only scars, deep blackened wounds in the earth. Villages once filled with life now stand empty, silent. The people walk among the ruins, touching broken walls, staring at empty windows, feeling the loss of everything they once held dear. There is relief, yes, but also sorrow, a deep, aching sadness that fills every corner, every quiet street. In Paris, in London, in Berlin, leaders gather, their faces serious, their hearts burdened. They know that peace has come, but they also know that the price of that peace is beyond measure. Treaties are signed, borders redrawn, reparations demanded. Words are spoken of rebuilding, of moving forward, of creating a world where such a tragedy will never happen again. Yet beneath the promises, there is a flicker of doubt, a recognition of wounds too deep to heal with words alone. As the months pass, soldiers struggle to find their place in this new world. They try to return to their lives, to find meaning in the everyday moments they once took for granted. But the memories linger, haunting them in quiet moments, in dreams that bring them back to the trenches, to the mud, to the faces of friends who will never come home. Some find solace in family, in work, in the rhythm of life, but others cannot escape the shadows, cannot forget the horrors they have endured. In quiet moments, they gather in small groups, sharing stories, sharing the weight of their memories, finding comfort in each other's presence. They do not speak of glory, of honor. They speak of survival, of loss, of a world that has changed in ways they cannot fully understand. They are bound together, not by medals, but by scars. Scars that will remain long after the world has moved on. The war has ended, but its effects ripple through every life, every nation. Europe is forever altered, its people bearing the weight of grief, of anger, of a resolve to never let this happen again. They speak of peace, of rebuilding, of creating a world where the horrors of war will never return. Yet they know, deep down, they know that the world they knew is gone, and the future remains uncertain. As the years go by, the memories of the war fade from the minds of some, but for others, they remain as vivid as ever. The survivors, the families of those who never returned, the children born in a world scarred by conflict. They carry the legacy of the war, a legacy of pain, of strength, of resilience. And in the quiet moments when the world is still, they remember. They remember the friends they lost, the lives that were changed, the sacrifices that were made. They remember the sound of the guns, the feel of the mud, the weight of hope that sustained them through the darkest days. They remember, and they vow to never forget. For though the guns have fallen silent and the world has begun to heal, the echoes of the war live on. They live on in the hearts of those who survived, in the families of those who were lost, in the silent monuments that mark the fields where so many fell. The world has changed forever, and so have they.